In a distant galaxy far from Earth, the Zorathians lived on their peaceful planet, Krylos. They were an advanced race, known for their sleek starships and towering cities that glimmered under twin suns. But among their people, there was one story that had been passed down for generations, a tale of a mysterious species called humans. These humans were said to be clever, brave, and resourceful, but over time, they became nothing more than legends, dismissed as myths by most. Ethan, a young historian with unruly brown hair and a curious mind, often wandered through the archives of Krylos. He loved digging into forgotten records, searching for clues about the past. One day, while sifting through dusty data crystals, he stumbled upon something unusual. A fragment of text mentioned beings who once traveled the stars in metal ships, using tools and knowledge far beyond what the Zorathians had at the time. The word human appeared repeatedly, though no one seemed to know what it truly meant. Excited by his discovery, Ethan rushed to share it with his mentor, Dr. Olivia Grant. She was a stern woman with sharp eyes and decades of experience studying ancient civilizations. When Ethan showed her the fragments, she frowned. "These are just old tales," she said, brushing off his enthusiasm. "Don't waste your time chasing ghosts, Ethan." But Ethan couldn't let it go. Something about the fragments felt real, tangible. He spent days piecing together more information, uncovering references to Earth, a blue planet orbiting a yellow star. Though many of the details were vague or missing, one thing stood out. Humans were not mythical creatures, they were survivors. And if they existed, where were they now? Meanwhile, light years away, near the gas giant Jupiter, a vast fleet of ships emerged from hyperspace. This was humanity's Armada, the remnants of a species that had fled its dying homeworld centuries ago. Their journey across the stars had been long and perilous, forcing them to adapt and evolve. Now, led by Admiral Logan Hayes, a grizzled leader with piercing blue eyes, they sought a new home among the stars. Logan stood on the bridge of the flagship Eclipse *, staring out at the endless expanse of space. Behind him, officers worked tirelessly at their stations, monitoring sensors and running diagnostics. The fleet carried millions of people, scientists, engineers, farmers, families, all hoping for a fresh start. For years, they had drifted silently through the void, avoiding contact with other species. But now, they needed allies, resources, and a place to rebuild. As the fleet approached the outer edges of the Zorathian system, alarms blared aboard a nearby scout vessel. Captain Ryan Cole, a cautious yet capable commander, noticed strange readings on his ship's scanners. At first, he thought it might be debris or a natural phenomenon. But as the image sharpened, his jaw dropped. Dozens of massive ships filled the screen, each one bristling with weapons and technology unlike anything he'd ever seen. "What is this?" Ryan muttered, calling his crew to attention. His communications officer tried hailing the unknown fleet, but there was no response. Minutes ticked by as tension mounted. Finally, a voice crackled over the comm channel. It was calm but firm, speaking in perfect universal standard. "This is Commander Mia Carter of the Human Armada. We mean you no harm. We seek peaceful dialogue." Ryan froze. Humans? Could it be true? The legendary species from the old stories had returned, and they were standing, or rather floating, right in front of him. Captain Ryan Cole stared at the view screen, his mind racing. The voice on the other end of the communication was calm, but carried an undeniable authority. Humans. He had heard the stories, of course. Everyone on Krylos had. But he never imagined they could be real. Yet here they were, their massive ships looming like silent giants against the backdrop of space. "Repeat your message," Ryan said cautiously, signaling his crew to stay alert. His communications officer nodded and sent the request. Moments later, the same voice responded. "We are humans. We come in peace. Our fleet is searching for a new home among the stars." Ryan hesitated. This was unprecedented. No one on Krylos had ever encountered another intelligent species before. He needed guidance. Turning to his first officer, he ordered, "Send a priority message to High Command. Tell them we've made contact with humans." The words felt strange as they left his lips. On the flagship Eclipse Commander Mia Carter waited patiently for a response. She was a tall woman with short, dark hair and a steady gaze that inspired confidence in her crew. Beside her stood Admiral Logan Hayes, who watched the exchange with quiet intensity. "Give them time," Maya said softly. "They've probably never seen anything like us." Back on Krylos, news of the encounter spread quickly. Dr. Olivia Grant listened intently as Ethan excitedly recounted what little information had reached the planet so far. "This changes everything," Ethan said, pacing back and forth in her office. "If these beings really are humans, then all those old legends, they're true." Olivia frowned. While she admired Ethan's passion, she remained skeptical. "Even if they are humans, we don't know their intentions. They could be friendly, or they could pose a threat." Meanwhile, High Command convened an emergency meeting. Ryan's report sparked heated debates among leaders. Some argued that welcoming the humans was too risky, while others saw this as an opportunity to learn from a species thought lost to history. After hours of discussion, they decided to send a delegation to meet the fleet under strict conditions. When the Zorathian envoy arrived, Mia greeted them warmly aboard the Eclipse. She introduced herself and explained humanity's plight, their long journey across the stars, their struggle to survive, and their hope for cooperation. The Zorathians listened intently, though their faces betrayed a mix of awe and suspicion. Admiral Hayes stepped forward, his deep voice filling the room. "We do not wish to impose on your people," he said, "but we ask for your help. In return, we offer knowledge, technology, and our friendship." The leader of the Zorathian delegation, Ambassador Clara Wells, exchanged glances with her team before responding. "Your arrival has caused much debate among our people. Many are afraid of what you represent. But we will take your proposal to our council and consider it carefully." As the meeting concluded, tensions lingered. Back on Krylos, public opinion began to shift. Some citizens embraced the idea of working with humans, seeing them as proof that survival was possible even in the harshest conditions. Others feared their advanced technology and questioned their motives. Ethan followed the unfolding events closely, writing articles and giving interviews to anyone who would listen. "This is a chance for both our peoples to grow," he told a local journalist. "We can't let fear stand in the way of progress." But not everyone shared his optimism. Rumors circulated about secret factions within the Zorathian government plotting to drive the humans away. Despite these challenges, Mia and her team continued to extend olive branches, determined to build trust. One evening, as Mia gazed out at the stars from the observation deck, she reflected on how far humanity had come. From fleeing Earth to standing on the brink of a new alliance, their journey was far from over. But for the first time in centuries, there was hope, a fragile, flickering light in the vast darkness of space. The fragile alliance between humans and Zorathians began to take shape, though both sides remained cautious. Ethan, eager to understand the newcomers, convinced Dr. Olivia Grant to join him on a mission to visit the human fleet. "This could be the most important discovery of our lifetime," he argued. After much deliberation, she agreed, seeing it as an opportunity to separate fact from fiction. A small shuttle carried them to the flagship Eclipse, where they were greeted by Commander Mia Carter. She led them through the ship's corridors, explaining its systems and showing them how humanity had adapted to life in space. Ethan marveled at the advanced technology, devices that recycled air and water, hydroponic gardens growing food, and engines capable of traveling faster than light. It was nothing like the myths he had studied. Dr. Grant, however, remained reserved. She asked pointed questions about human intentions and their plans for the future. Maya answered honestly, emphasizing their need for cooperation rather than conflict. "We're not here to conquer," she said. "We just want a chance to rebuild." Meanwhile, aboard the Eclipse, Admiral Logan Hayes faced resistance from his own council. Some members believed the Zorathians couldn't be trusted, citing past betrayals humanity had endured from other species during their long exile. "They'll turn on us the moment it suits them," warned council member Sarah Blake, her voice sharp with suspicion. But Logan stood firm. "If we don't try, we have no future," he replied. "We've survived this long because we adapted. Now, we must learn to trust again." Tensions rose when news arrived that the Vorik Horde, a ruthless enemy known for conquering entire star systems, was moving closer to Zorathian territory. Captain Ryan Cole reported sightings of Vorik scouts near the outer rim of their system. The threat forced both humans and Zorathians to consider working together more closely. Mia proposed a joint defense strategy, combining Zorathian agility with human firepower. At first, many Zorathian leaders hesitated, fearing reliance on unfamiliar technology. But Ambassador Clara Wells recognized the urgency of the situation. "If we don't unite now, none of us will survive," she told her peers. Slowly, support for the alliance grew. Back on Krylos, public opinion shifted dramatically. Ethan published detailed accounts of his visit to the human fleet, highlighting their struggles and determination. His writings resonated with ordinary citizens, who began to see the humans not as strangers but as kindred spirits. Demonstrations broke out in major cities, with crowds chanting slogans like "Together we stand" and "Unity against fear." Despite the growing goodwill, challenges persisted. A faction within the Zorathian military, led by General Marcus Hale, opposed any cooperation with humans. They viewed the newcomers' superior weapons as a potential threat to Krylos' sovereignty. Secret meetings were held, and whispers of rebellion spread. One night, Ethan received a message from an anonymous source claiming there was a plot to sabotage the alliance. Though unsure whom to trust, he decided to warn Mia. When he met her in private, she listened carefully, her expression grave. "Thank you for telling me," she said. "We'll handle this carefully." As days passed, preparations for the joint defense intensified. Pilots like Jake Thompson and Samantha Brooks trained alongside Zorathian crews, learning each other's tactics. Bonds formed quickly, built on mutual respect and shared goals. Even skeptical soldiers began to see the value of collaboration. Logan watched these developments with cautious optimism. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, but he also saw glimmers of hope. Humanity had always thrived by adapting and forging connections. Perhaps, he thought, this partnership could mark the beginning of something greater, not just survival, but renewal. In the quiet moments before another round of strategy meetings, Maya stood beside Logan on the bridge, staring out at the stars. "Do you think we can pull this off?" she asked softly. Logan smiled faintly. "We have to," he said. "For all of us." The Vorik Horde struck without warning, their massive ships descending upon a Zorathian outpost near the edge of the star system. The attack was swift and brutal, catching the defenders off guard. Alarms blared as explosions lit up the darkness of space, sending shockwaves through both the Zorathian forces and their human allies. Captain Ryan Cole watched in horror from his command ship as the outpost's defenses crumbled under the relentless assault. He quickly relayed the situation to Commander Mia Carter aboard the Eclipse *. "We need help now," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "They're overwhelming us." Mia didn't hesitate. She ordered a squadron of human fighters to engage the enemy immediately. Pilots like Jake Thompson and Samantha Brooks sprang into action, their sleek ships darting through the chaos with precision. Equipped with advanced weaponry and guided by years of experience, they tore through the Vorik fleet, turning the tide of the battle. For the Zorathians, it was a revelation. They had never seen tactics like this. Coordinated maneuvers that maximized efficiency while minimizing casualties. Their own pilots struggled to keep up, but they fought bravely alongside their new allies. Together, humans and Zorathians pushed back against the invaders, forcing them to retreat. Back on Krylos, news of the victory spread quickly. Citizens celebrated the successful defense, hailing the humans as heroes. Ethan couldn't contain his excitement as he wrote about the battle, describing how humanity's ingenuity and courage had saved countless lives. His articles painted a vivid picture of cooperation between two species fighting for survival. But not everyone shared in the celebration. General Marcus Hale seethed with anger, convinced that relying on humans made the Zorathians weak. In secret meetings, he rallied his followers, arguing that the alliance was a mistake. "They'll abandon us when it suits them," he growled. "Or worse, they'll take over our planet once the Vorik horde is gone." His words found traction among some military leaders and politicians who feared losing control. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, threatening to undermine the fragile partnership. Ambassador Clara Wells worked tirelessly to counter these sentiments, reminding her people of the stakes. "If we turn on each other, the Vorik horde wins," she declared during a public address. Her speech resonated with many, but doubts lingered. On the front lines, the bond between humans and Zorathians grew stronger. Jake and Samantha spent hours training Zorathian pilots, teaching them new strategies and helping them adapt to unfamiliar technology. Slowly, trust began to form. One young Zorathian pilot named Lyra expressed her gratitude after a particularly intense drill. "You've shown us what's possible," she told Jake. "Thank you." Despite these positive developments, Admiral Logan Hayes remained wary. Intelligence reports indicated that the Vorik horde wasn't retreating. They were regrouping. Warlord Kragthar, their ruthless leader, was planning something big. Rumors spoke of a devastating weapon capable of destroying entire planets. If true, it posed a threat not just to Krylos, but to every world in the galaxy. Logan called an emergency meeting with his council. "We can't wait for them to strike again," he said. "We need to hit them first, find their weapon, and neutralize it." The idea was risky, but necessary. Mia volunteered to lead the mission, knowing it would require stealth and precision. As preparations began, Ethan requested permission to join the team. He wanted to document the operation, believing it could inspire others to believe in unity. Though hesitant at first, Mia agreed, recognizing the value of sharing their story. The night before departure, Logan stood alone on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. He thought about everything they had endured. Their flight from Earth, centuries of wandering, and now this fragile alliance. For the first time in years, he felt a glimmer of hope, but he also knew the road ahead would be dangerous. Turning to Mia, who had joined him silently, he said, "Whatever happens, we've already proven one thing. Together, we're stronger than we are apart." Mia nodded, her resolve unwavering. Tomorrow, they would face the unknown. And whatever challenges awaited them, they would face them side by side. The mission to uncover the Vorik horde's secret weapon began under the cover of darkness. A small, specially chosen team prepared to infiltrate enemy territory. Commander Mia Carter led the operation, her calm demeanor masking the weight of responsibility she carried. Alongside her were Jake Thompson and Samantha Brooks, seasoned pilots ready for anything, and Lieutenant Daniel Hughes, a skilled engineer tasked with disabling the weapon. Ethan, the historian, accompanied them, determined to document every moment. Before departure, Admiral Logan Hayes addressed the group. "This isn't just about stopping the Vorik horde," he said, his voice steady but filled with gravity. "It's about proving that we can work together. Not just humans and Zorathians, but all of us. Trust each other, and we'll make it through." His words resonated deeply, especially with Ethan, who felt a surge of purpose. The team boarded a cloaked reconnaissance ship, slipping past Vorik patrols undetected. As they approached the coordinates of the suspected weapon facility, tension filled the air. Through the viewport, they saw a heavily fortified station orbiting a desolate moon. It bristled with turrets and swarmed with enemy ships. Breaking in wouldn't be easy. Mia devised a plan. Using the ship's advanced sensors, they identified weak points in the station's defenses. Jake and Samantha would create a diversion by luring enemy fighters away, while Mia, Daniel, and Ethan sneaked aboard to locate and disable the weapon. The stakes were high, but failure wasn't an option. As the operation unfolded, things quickly grew chaotic. Jake and Samantha launched their attack, drawing the attention of dozens of Vorik ships. Their agility and precision kept the enemy occupied, but the sheer number of foes made every second count. Back on the station, Mia's team used grappling hooks to board silently. They moved cautiously through dimly lit corridors, avoiding patrols and security drones. Ethan struggled to keep up, his heart pounding as he clutched his data recorder. This was nothing like studying history from the safety of Krylos. Every sound, every shadow felt like a threat. But he reminded himself why he was here, to capture the truth, no matter how dangerous. Daniel took the lead, analyzing control panels and deciphering alien technology. His hands worked quickly, bypassing locks and disabling alarms. "We're close," he whispered after hacking into a terminal. A map appeared on the screen, highlighting the location of the weapon, a massive device at the station's core. Reaching it required navigating a labyrinth of traps and guards. At one point, Mia had to take out 2 Vorik soldiers silently, using techniques honed over years of combat. Daniel marveled at her skill, realizing just how much humanity had endured to survive. Finally, they'd reached the chamber housing the weapon. It was even more terrifying than they had imagined. A colossal machine designed to harness energy capable of obliterating planets. Daniel immediately got to work, connecting his tools to the control panel. "I need 5 minutes," he said, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. But time was not on their side. Alarms blared as the station detected their presence. Vorik reinforcements poured into the chamber, weapons drawn. Maya and Ethan stood back to back, holding them off as best they could. Bullets ricocheted off walls, and smoke filled the air. Despite the chaos, Daniel remained focused, his fingers flying over the controls. Then came the betrayal. Unbeknownst to the team, Commander Ava Marks, a Zorathian operative embedded with the humans, transmitted their location to Warlord Krakthar. She believed sacrificing the humans would save her people from further conflict. Her actions sealed their fate, or so she thought. Just as Daniel completed the sabotage, Vorik forces closed in. "Go," he shouted, staying behind to ensure the weapon's destruction. With tears in her eyes, Mia obeyed, dragging Ethan toward the exit. Behind them, an explosion rocked the station, signaling both their salvation and Daniel's sacrifice. Back aboard the reconnaissance ship, the surviving team members regrouped, shaken but alive. Ethan recorded everything, his hands trembling as he spoke into the recorder. "Today, I witnessed bravery beyond words," he said, "and I learned that heroes aren't born. They choose to act when it matters most." The mission was a success, but the cost weighed heavily on everyone. As they fled the doomed station, the reality of war and its sacrifices became painfully clear. The betrayal by Commander Ava Marks sent shockwaves through both the human fleet and the Zorathian leadership. When news of her actions reached Krylos, it ignited a firestorm of anger and distrust. Many Zorathians felt betrayed not just by Ava, but by their own government, which had allowed such secrecy to fester. Public protests erupted in major cities, with citizens demanding answers. Ethan stood among the crowds, watching as chants of "No more lies" echoed through the streets. On the Eclipse Asterisk, Admiral Logan Hayes called an emergency meeting with his council. The room buzzed with tension as details of Ava's treachery came to light. "She handed us over to the Vorik horde," Sarah Blake said, slamming her fist on the table. "How can we trust any of them now?" Mia Carter remained calm, though her hands gripped the edge of the table tightly. "We can't let this divide us," she said firmly. Ava acted alone, and we can't punish an entire species for one person's mistake. Logan agreed. "If we turn on each other, Krakthar wins. We need to focus on what matters, stopping the Vorik horde before they strike again." Despite his words, he knew rebuilding trust wouldn't be easy. Ambassador Clara Wells worked tirelessly to mend relations between the two groups. She addressed the Zorathian people directly, speaking from her heart. "Yes, we have made mistakes," she admitted, "but so has every species that has ever faced hardship. What defines us is how we move forward. Let's honor those who sacrificed everything by standing together." Her speech resonated deeply, calming some of the unrest. Slowly, conversations shifted from blame to solutions. Ethan played a key role in this shift, publishing detailed accounts of the mission and highlighting Daniel Hughes' bravery. His writings reminded readers that unity wasn't just an ideal, it was a necessity for survival. Meanwhile, aboard the ships, bonds between humans and Zorathians began to strengthen once more. Pilots like Jake Thompson and Samantha Brooks continued training alongside their counterparts, sharing stories during downtime. One evening, Lyra, the young Zorathian pilot, approached Jake with a question. "Why do you fight so hard for people you barely know?" she asked. Jake thought for a moment before answering. "Because no one should face something like this alone. We've been through enough wars to know that sticking together makes us stronger." Back on Krylos, Ethan delved deeper into historical records, uncovering disturbing truths about the Zorathians' past. He found evidence suggesting that centuries ago, their ancestors had encountered humans but deliberately erased all records of the event. Fear of humanity's potential power had driven them to silence. This revelation shocked Dr. Olivia Grant, who realized her people had repeated the same mistake twice. First, by forgetting humans, and then by doubting them. Ethan decided to share his findings publicly, hoping transparency would prevent further division. His article sparked widespread debate, forcing many Zorathians to confront uncomfortable truths about their history. Some resented him for stirring up old wounds, but others thanked him for shedding light on the past. As tensions eased, preparations for the next phase of the war intensified. Intelligence reports indicated that Warlord Krakthar was regrouping his forces for a massive assault on Krylos itself. Both humans and Zorathians knew they couldn't afford to lose this battle. Admiral Hayes devised a bold strategy, using decoy ships to lure the Vorik fleet into a trap while launching a coordinated counterattack. Training exercises became grueling, pushing everyone to their limits. Pilots practiced complex maneuvers, engineers tested new weapon systems, and ground troops honed their combat skills. Through it all, Mia kept morale high, reminding everyone why they were fighting, for a future where both species could thrive. One quiet night, Ethan joined Nia on the observation deck. They stared out at the stars, reflecting on everything they had endured. "Do you think we'll win?" Ethan asked softly. Mia smiled faintly. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I do know this. We're doing something worth fighting for. And sometimes that's enough." Her words stayed with Ethan long after they parted ways. In the days leading up to the final battle, he documented every moment, determined to ensure that the sacrifices made and the lessons learned would never be forgotten. The final battle loomed closer, and the air aboard the Eclipse Asterisk was thick with anticipation. Admiral Logan Hayes stood on the bridge, studying holographic maps of the upcoming engagement. His plan relied on precision timing and absolute trust between humans and Zorathians, two things that still felt fragile after Ava Mark's betrayal. But there was no turning back now. The Vorik horde was coming, and Krylos would be their target. Mia Carter gathered her team for one last briefing. Pilots like Jake Thompson and Samantha Brooks sat alongside Zorathian counterparts, their faces grim but resolute. "This is it," Maya said, her voice steady. "We've trained for this. We know what we're up against. Stick to the plan, watch each other's backs, and we'll get through this." As the fleet moved into position, Ethan stayed close to the command center, recording everything. He had seen fear and courage in equal measure during his time with the humans, and he wanted the galaxy to remember the sacrifices made here. For once, he didn't feel out of place among soldiers. He realized his role mattered too. The decoy ships launched first, drawing the Vorik fleet away from Krylos. Warlord Kragthar took the bait, sending wave after wave of fighters toward the seemingly vulnerable targets. Meanwhile, the main human Zorathian force prepared to strike from behind, cutting off the enemy's retreat. When the trap was sprung, chaos erupted. Explosions lit up space as ships clashed in a dazzling display of firepower. Jake and Samantha led their squadrons with unmatched skill, weaving through enemy fire and taking down key targets. Lyra fought beside them, her earlier doubts replaced by fierce determination. Together, they created openings for the larger warships to advance. On the ground, Zorathian defenses held firm against Vorik boarding parties. Soldiers worked side by side with human marines, defending Krylos with everything they had. The planet's twin suns cast an eerie glow over the battlefield, painting the scene in hues of orange and red. But the Vorik horde wasn't giving up easily. Kragthar himself joined the fight, commanding his flagship with brutal efficiency. Its massive cannons tore through Allied ships, forcing Mia to rethink her strategy on the fly. She ordered reinforcements to focus on disabling the flagship's engines, knowing it was their best chance to end the battle quickly. Amidst the chaos, Ethan found himself pinned down in a damaged corridor of the Eclipse Asterisk. A hull breach had separated him from the main group, and smoke filled the air. Panic threatened to overwhelm him, but then he heard a familiar voice. "Hold on." It was Dr. Olivia Grant, who had accompanied the fleet to assist with medical efforts. She helped him navigate the wreckage, keeping him calm until they reached safety. Back in the thick of the fight, Mia led a daring assault on Kragthar's flagship. Her small strike team boarded the vessel, facing heavy resistance at every turn. Bullets whizzed past as they pushed forward, determined to reach the command center. When they finally confronted Kragthar, the warlord sneered at them. "You think you can stop me?" he growled, raising his weapon. What happened next was a blur. Maya fired first, striking Kragthar squarely in the chest. As he fell, his grip on the fleet faltered, and the remaining Vorik forces began to retreat. Cheers erupted across the Allied channels, though the cost of victory weighed heavily on everyone. Admiral Hayes watched the enemy flee, relief washing over him. They had won, but at great expense. Ships lay in ruins, lives lost forever. Still, he knew they had achieved something extraordinary. Humans and Zorathians had faced their darkest hour together and emerged stronger. Later, as Ethan documented the aftermath, he reflected on the journey. From dusty archives to the heat of battle, he had witnessed humanity's resilience and the power of unity. Though scars remained, hope burned brighter than ever. The legends weren't just stories anymore. They were alive, proving that even in the face of impossible odds, survival was possible. In the aftermath of the battle, the atmosphere aboard the Eclipse Asterisk was a mix of relief and sorrow. The Vorik horde had been defeated, but the cost of victory lingered in every corner of the ship. Damaged vessels drifted in space, their crews either lost or struggling to survive. Admiral Logan Hayes walked through the corridors, his face etched with exhaustion. He stopped to speak with engineers repairing critical systems, offering quiet words of gratitude. Each nod, each shared glance, carried the weight of what they had endured together. Mia Carter stood on the observation deck, staring out at the wreckage. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the railing. Victory felt hollow when so many lives had been lost. Jake Thompson approached her, his usually confident demeanor replaced by somber reflection. "We did it," he said softly, "but I can't stop thinking about Daniel and everyone else." Mia nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "They gave us this chance. We owe it to them to make it count." On Krylos, the Zorathian people gathered in public squares to mourn their fallen heroes. Memorials sprang up overnight, adorned with flowers and messages of gratitude. Ethan wandered among the crowds, watching as families lit candles for loved ones who would never return. He noticed children drawing pictures of starships and warriors, symbols of hope born from tragedy. It reminded him of humanity's resilience, the ability to find light even in the darkest moments. Dr. Olivia Grant joined him, her expression thoughtful. "This changes everything," she said. "For centuries, we've lived in fear of outsiders. Now we've learned that trust isn't weakness, it's strength." Ethan agreed, though his mind kept returning to the betrayal by Ava Marx. Her actions had nearly cost them everything, yet the alliance had survived. "I think we're finally ready to move forward," he replied. Together, Ambassador Clara Wells addressed the planet in a heartfelt speech, acknowledging both the sacrifices made and the unity forged in the crucible of war. "Today, we honor those who fought not just for Krylos, but for all of us," she declared. "Let this be the beginning of a new chapter, a future where humans and Zorethians stand side by side." As rebuilding efforts began, practical challenges emerged. Resources were stretched thin, and tensions occasionally flared between human and Zorethian teams. But small acts of kindness helped bridge divides. Engineers shared tools and techniques, while medics worked tirelessly to heal the wounded. Even simple gestures, sharing meals or swapping stories, brought people closer. Logan called a meeting with Zorethian leaders to discuss long-term plans. "We need to prepare for whatever comes next," he said. "The Vorak horde is gone, but there will always be threats out there. Together, we're stronger." Clara nodded. "Krylos can be more than just your refuge. Make it our shared home." The idea resonated deeply. Plans were drawn up to integrate human technology with Zorethian infrastructure, creating a society built on mutual respect and cooperation. Ethan documented these developments, capturing moments of progress amid the scars of war. His writings inspired others, reminding them of how far they had come. One evening, Mia invited Ethan to join her on the observation deck. They watched as stars twinkled against the vast expanse of space. "What happens now?" Ethan asked. Mia smiled faintly. "We rebuild. We learn. And maybe one day, we'll explore beyond this system, together." Her words stayed with Ethan as he returned to his quarters, penning the final lines of his latest article. Humanity's journey wasn't over, it was only beginning. From forgotten legends to saviors of Krylos, they had proven that survival was possible, not alone, but united. As he closed his notebook, Ethan allowed himself a moment of quiet pride. The story of humanity wasn't just about the past, it was about the future they were building. One step at a time. Months passed, and life on Krylos began to take on a new rhythm. The scars of war still lingered, both in the ruins of damaged cities and in the hearts of those who had lost loved ones. But hope was slowly replacing despair. Humans and Zorethians worked side by side, blending their cultures and technologies to create something neither species could have achieved alone. Streets once filled with fear now buzzed with activity as markets reopened. Schools welcomed students, and families rebuilt their homes. Ethan spent his days chronicling this transformation. He interviewed engineers who combined human innovation with Zorethian craftsmanship to construct energy-efficient buildings. He spoke with farmers who introduced earth crops to Krylos soil, creating hybrid plants that thrived in the planet's unique climate. Everywhere he looked, he saw signs of progress, and proof that unity wasn't just an idea, it was a living reality. Dr. Olivia Grant joined him on many of these visits, her skepticism replaced by admiration for what humanity had accomplished. "I used to think we were helping them," she admitted one evening as they walked through a bustling plaza. "Now I see they've helped us just as much." The integration process wasn't without challenges. Some Zorethians struggled to adapt to human customs, while others resented the rapid changes sweeping across their world. But leaders like Ambassador Clara Wells worked tirelessly to address concerns, hosting town hall meetings where people could voice their fears and hopes. Slowly but surely, trust grew. On the Eclipse asterisk, Admiral Logan Hayes reflected on how far they had come. The fleet no longer felt like a collection of refugees clinging to survival. It was a community united by purpose. Pilots like Jake Thompson and Samantha Brooks trained new recruits, passing on skills that would protect future generations. Even Lyra, the young Zorathian pilot, had become a valued member of the team, earning respect for her bravery and quick thinking. Mia Carter stood beside Logan on the bridge, watching as supply ships ferried resources between Krylos and the fleet. "It feels strange," she said, her voice tinged with wonder. "For so long, we were searching for a place to belong. Now we found one." Logan nodded. "And not just for ourselves, for everyone." Word of their success spread beyond Krylos. Other planets within range began reaching out, curious about the alliance between humans and Zorathians. Trade agreements were forged, cultural exchanges arranged, and ambassadors welcomed aboard the Eclipse Asterisk. For the first time in centuries, humanity wasn't seen as a forgotten legend or a wandering relic. They were pioneers shaping a brighter future. One day, Ethan received a message from High Command inviting him to attend a special ceremony on Krylos. When he arrived, he found a crowd gathered in front of a towering monument engraved with names, those who had given their lives during the battle against the Vorik horde. At its base stood Admiral Hayes, Mia, Clara, and other key figures from both species. "This memorial is more than stone and metal," Clara said, addressing the crowd. "It's a reminder of what we achieved together, and a promise to never forget the sacrifices made along the way." As applause echoed through the square, Ethan felt tears welling up in his eyes. This moment wasn't just about remembering the past. It was about celebrating the present and looking toward the future. Later that night, Ethan sat alone in his quarters, penning the final chapter of his book, Legends Reborn. He wrote about courage, resilience, and the power of unity. As he closed his notebook, he realized something profound. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their ability to adapt. It was their capacity to connect, to inspire, and to build bridges where none existed before. Far above, the stars shimmered brightly, calling to those who dared to dream. And for the first time in centuries, humanity answered, not as wanderers, but as builders of a new dawn. The sons of Krylos rose over a world transformed. Where once there had been division and doubt, now stood a thriving society built on trust and cooperation. Humans and Zorathians worked together in fields, factories, and laboratories, their combined efforts breathing new life into the planet. Streets buzzed with laughter, markets overflowed with goods from both species, and children played games that blended Earth traditions with Zorathian customs. It was a fragile piece, but it was growing stronger every day. Ethan's book, Legends Reborn, became a symbol of this unity. Its pages told the story of humanity's journey, from fleeing Earth to finding a home among the stars, and celebrated the courage of those who fought to protect Krylos. Copies spread across the galaxy, inspiring others to believe in the power of collaboration. Ethan often found himself signing autographs or answering questions at public events, his role as a historian giving way to something greater, a voice for change. Admiral Logan Hayes watched these developments with quiet pride. The fleet he had led for so long was no longer just a collection of ships. It was a family. Pilots like Jake Thompson and Samantha Brooks trained alongside Zorathian recruits, teaching them not only how to fly but also how to think strategically. Lyra, once hesitant and unsure, now commanded her own squadron, earning admiration from both humans and her fellow Zorathians. Mia Carter spent much of her time mentoring young leaders, sharing lessons learned during decades of survival. She often reminded them that strength came not from weapons or technology, but from understanding and working with others. "We're stronger when we stand together," she would say. Her words resonated deeply, especially among the next generation, who saw her as a hero. On Krylos, Ambassador Clara Wells continued to advocate for unity, traveling to neighboring systems to share the story of the Alliance. Other planets, inspired by what they heard, began reaching out to form partnerships. Trade routes expanded, cultural exchanges flourished, and alliances strengthened. For the first time in centuries, humanity wasn't seen as a relic of the past. They were pioneers shaping a brighter future. One evening, Logan stood on the bridge of the Eclipse gazing out at the stars. Beside him, Mia joined silently, her presence comforting. "What's next?" she asked after a long pause. Logan smiled faintly. "We keep going. There's still so much to explore, so many worlds to discover. But this time, we do it together." The decision to continue exploring wasn't made lightly. Both humans and Zorathians understood the risks, but they also knew the rewards. A joint expedition fleet was assembled, combining the best of both species' technologies and skills. Young recruits eagerly volunteered, eager to carry the torch lit by their predecessors. As the fleet prepared to depart, a ceremony was held to honor those staying behind. Families gathered to say goodbye, exchanging promises to stay connected through messages sent across the stars. Ethan stood among the crowd, recording the emotional farewells. Though he chose to remain on Krylos, he felt a deep connection to those leaving. He knew their journey would become part of his next book. When the engines roared to life and the ships ascended into the sky, cheers erupted below. The sight of humans and Zorathians side by side, venturing into the unknown, filled everyone with hope. They weren't just explorers, they were ambassadors of a new era. Far above, as the fleet disappeared into the vastness of space, Logan reflected on everything they had endured. Humanity had faced extinction, betrayal, and war, but they had risen above it all. And now, they carried with them not just the dreams of two species, but the promise of a united future. For Ethan, watching from below, the moment was bittersweet yet beautiful. He thought back to the dusty archives where his journey had begun, searching for answers about legends long forgotten. Now those legends were alive, not in stories, but in actions. As he turned to leave, he whispered to himself, "This is just the beginning." And somewhere beyond the stars, amid uncharted galaxies and endless possibilities, humanity's legacy continued to grow, a testament to resilience, courage, and the enduring power of unity.